Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, the 16th of August 2021. It's Gary Gillen here, and I'm your host once again for this week's edition. And I'm not so delighted to tell you that I'm now back from my holiday in Invermere, British Columbia with Leo, but what an amazing week that we had out there. The only spoiler for the whole week, to be really honest, was last Tuesday's Rangers game, but more about that part in a wee while. As I try to start with each week, I do usually begin the pods by saying that I hope everyone is doing great, but after the journey that our beloved football team has taken us on this past two to 3 weeks, it's likely best just to forgo the pleasantries for this 1 week and get straight to the NARSA content, and that's exactly what we will do. In this week's What Gaz Got Wrong Last Week, I did try to tone down the perspective references, but I'm fully aware that I didn't fully manage to do that, which I hope is okay. Baby steps, Rome wasn't built in a day and all that sort of thing. So if I go full cold turkey on that one, I don't think anyone wins. So you might hear the odd reference. I don't think there's going to be any this week, but you never know. But you might hear the odd one, and it will go the way of the dodo before too long. Other than that, there wasn't anything else specifically mentioned to me that I flubbed from last week's pod, so I think that's a good thing, and long may that continue. Our games segment for this week, we had two very important games for the club last week, and in two different competitions, which is kind of fun as well. Starting with our Tuesday return leg at home to Malmo in front of a packed Ibrox, where we just didn't properly show up again for the second half and got dumped out of the Champions League 4-2 on aggregate after suffering a very painful 2-1 home defeat against Malmo. We were, for some bizarro reasons, sporting our new purple third kit because apparently what the commentator said was that Malmo didn't bring a change of kit to allow us to wear a regular home blue shirt. Now, the cynic in me would say that either that was a blatant lie and a marketing ploy to have the shirts worn by our heroes on a big European night and have it instantaneously synonymous with success, only for us to flop, and flop badly, by the way. And now this shirt could go the way of the retro shirts from last season that we spectacularly flopped in during our League Cup exit at St Mirren late last year, and that's never been seen again in real live action. I'm not sure, or if it wasn't a marketing ploy, was it an episode of gamesmanship from Malmo to ensure that we couldn't wear our home kit and in some way gain some sort of competitive advantage from that? I truly have no idea, and apologies if you've already seen this explained properly via other media outlets, but I was on holiday and not fully on top of everything, and I'll use that as my excuse for this week. Either way, when we're at home, we should be in our home kit. Call me a traditionalist if you like, but why would we not want to be in our favoured kit that gives us all the joy and pleasure of watching our team in each and every week. Anyway, back to the game. I thought the first half was excellent, and we really took the game to Malmo, scored a brilliant goal from Alfredo Morelos after a superb cross from Ryan Kent, and it looked like everything was working out the way that we were anticipating it was going to work out, and that was very nicely for us. And even more so when their player, Bonke Innocent, I normally wouldn't say the name of the opposition. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but I can't not say that name. What an amazing name that fella has, eh? Bonky Innocent was harshly dealt a second yellow, and just into injury time in the end of the first half. So got his red card. So by that point, we're not even just back in the tie. We've taken a firm grip of the tie and have full advantage. Therefore, absolute control. You would think, but no. In the spirit of just not starting the second half well enough against quality teams, we go and do the exact same and lose 2 goals in 4 minutes to what I can try and be as polite as I possibly can be and describe as shambolic schoolboy defending. And and that was in 53 and 57 minutes. And I have to apologise actually to every schoolboy defender everywhere who might be listening. I know you guys would have done better than our team did on those 2 goals. 2 good finishes, to be fair, but the space created for the striker on both was just awful, and ridiculous defending. So let's break this down a wee bit more. We lost 4 goals in 6 minutes to Malmo. 4 goals in 6 minutes to Malmo. Let that one sink in for just a wee bit. After our incredible defensive records from last season, to say that this is unlike us is just a gigantic understatement. It was awful, just awful. And then we spent the rest of the night just basically pumping hopeful balls into the box, and they just lapped it up every single time. Can't fault the players for effort in terms of trying, but they looked mentally and physically unfit from my perspective, and absolutely completely bereft of ideas and in any sort of invention to try and get ourselves back into the game. I mean, how many shots did we sky in that second half, particularly from Kent and Hadji? Good for them for the endeavour and getting into that spot, and then the ball just hurtles, moonward. I talked to my dad, Ronnie, after the game, and I says, look, you might want to go and check your back garden. He lives in Dyke Bar in Paisley, because I'm sure 1 or 2 of those balls must have been close to landing in his garden at the back there as well. Just absolute, just awful. A lame ending at the very first hurdle to a return to the Champions League. But I have to be honest and say I think we honestly got what we deserved, and I guess we're actually not a Champions League level team just yet. We've already proven, and then some, that we're a solid Europa League team. And as much as it pains me to say it right now, as we sit recording this, that seems to be our level for this current squad and this current management team. So all of that culminates in us dropping down to the playoff round for the Europa League, which is a big, massive, disappointed sigh from this side of the water. And I'm sure it's the same on all sides of the water as well. On Friday, we returned to the League Cup, and we had action at home against Dunfermline in Friday afternoon at North American time. And we turned in a vastly improved performance on Tuesday's game compared to Tuesday's game and last Saturday's game and the Tuesday before's game, albeit against a lower division team, but this certainly helped raise our spirits a wee bit and avoided us slipping to 4 defeats in a row, which would have been a real heavy end to the week. We started fast, we looked fit and energetic all over the pitch, and ran out worthy 5-0 winners thanks to goals from Lundstrom, his first for the club, and I thought he put in a great shift when he was on the field the other night there. Scott Wright, Hadji, and a double from the returning Kamar Roof, and it looks like it's good news for his son, who was sick last week as well. Much better, and hopefully some of the really strong performances, especially from our left and right backs, who didn't really covet themselves in any sort of glory in the previous games. Hopefully that gives our manager a real selection headache prior to this weekend's game at Ross County. And as you'll probably know, the draw for the quarter-final of the League Cup was made yesterday afternoon, and we were drawn at home to Livingston for that one, with the tie going to be midweek sometime the week, either September 21st, 22nd or 23rd. That's still to be confirmed. I'm fairly sure it will be live on TV back home, and that TV schedule will determine when we're going to get to see it. This week we have 2 very important games. I say that every week, but it's very, very true. The first is the aforementioned Europa League final playoff qualifier at home to FC Alashkert from Armenia. I probably butchered that, with a 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff, and that's an 8 p.m. UK time kickoff for this one. I have to admit, I haven't heard a single thing about this team at all, and I'm hoping that that's actually a really good sign, and an on-point Rangers should have more than enough in our armoury to get a positive result at Ibrox to make the second leg next week a bit of a formality. But with the team doing what they're doing right now, I guess we won't know until the 90 minutes are concluded as to whether that's actually going to be the case or not. I did mention last week that the Champions League playoff round would not be live on Rangers TV, and that was a fact. It wouldn't have been live. One wee silver lining, if I could say that in inverted commas, of dropping to Europa is that the playoff round, which is this week and next week, will be broadcast live on Rangers TV, so that's good news. For the group stages, UEFA pools all the fixtures for group games and beyond, and they'll be broadcast live over other channels, as I'd mentioned also last week as well. So RTV will have the as live rights to them from midnight UK should we progress into the group stages, which I'm fairly confident that we will. I'm hopeful of another positive Europa campaign for this year, and did a wee tiny bit of research before I came on air tonight, and know that the final is in Seville in Spain next May. And since I personally haven't been to Spain since, I think it's 2004, which was the year that I emigrated, or maybe it was 2003, maybe I never came in 2004, I can't quite remember. But I will be looking forward to heading back there in May, just prior to NARSA 2022 in Las Vegas, should we make it. Nothing like a positive mental attitude as we approach these next crucial 2 games in terms of European qualification. The second game is a return to regular league action with a bit of a tricky match away to Ross County on Sunday with a 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. And note the later kickoff time for this weekend game, which is a wee bit unusual. Usually our away games end up with the kind of junk early, very, very early kickoff times, but this one is very welcome for us here in North America, and we will take it 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. for all Calgary Bears who are going to come down to the Palomino and join us. The last time we played Ross County away was back in early December 2020, when we ran out an emphatic 4-0 winners with goals from Kamar Roof, James Tavernier, an own goal from one of their guys, whoever it was, and a last-minute goal from Jermaine Defoe. So with the way things have been going, as I mentioned earlier, I'll take any sort of result against Ross County on Sunday, but if it was similar to last December's, then that would be even better. On to RTV for this week. I think we had another good week in terms of the quality of the feeds that we received, and in fact, I was in Invermere on holiday. I know I keep mentioning the holiday, casting the game through Leo's Xbox to RTV, and the quality of the picture was fantastic, almost HD like. And that's not me looking at things through blue tinted glasses and pretending that I see things that I don't see. The feed was really, really good. I know there has been some tweaks done on the distribution end of the feed, not the RTV end of what signal they're sending out, but what's happening basically to it after RTV has sent it out, and I know that there's been some comments about the increase in quality on that, so I don't really know technically any more than that, but I truly do hope that each club and or individual in North America is seeing the benefit of this with an increased quality feed as well. And if not, of course, please do reach out to your broadcast RTV director, Alan McWatt, at alanmcwatt@yahoo.com, that's 2 T's, and let him know, and we will do our best to see what we can do. We're always looking for any experiential news on your RTV experience, whether it be good or bad, so please feel free to get in touch at any time and let us know. And to that very point, just another quick reminder, I've been doing this the last couple of weeks for all NARSA clubs. If you are experiencing issues with the games, please contact us immediately in-game, and we will do everything that we can to help you, including escalating to RTV if required. If you do wait and let us know after the fact, the opportunities for us to be able to help are drastically limited then, and obviously you've went through the experience and the pain of having a negative situation when you and your members have showed up for the game as well. And just one final thing from an RTV perspective, you will have noticed that we still haven't got our RTV survey out to talk about game fees for this year, and I will endeavour to work with Alan to get that out this week. That's a commitment, and it will be out before the end of the week, I am sure. From a shout outs this week, I have one main one this week, and that is sending out all the very best of health and wishes to a good friend of NARSA, host of Heart and Hand the Rangers podcast and MC for NARSA 2022, of course, Mr. David Edgar, who has been experiencing some health challenges of late. He is going through some medical testing right now and making some life routine changes to hopefully make sure he is on the road to recovery. Knowing what I do about David's crisps and pot noodle diet and an amazingly strict dedication to a zero exercise regime, I'm hopeful that a wee tweak or two, maybe a glass of water, some fruit and a walk every now and again will bear immediate fruits for him as he continues to work through the tests and pending treatment if it comes to that. David, my friend, all the very, very best to you, and just know that everyone in NARSA is rooting for you, none more so than me, and that's primarily because I don't want to have to source another MC for Vegas, and also, more importantly, because I love you very much. So that's the shout out for this week. All the very, very best to David on that as he continues his recovery journey. From a convention update this week, we did indeed get our Thursday and Friday night ticket packages on sale last Thursday. I'd mentioned last week it was hopefully going to be Wednesday, all being well, and then Tuesday's result happened to us and we decided just to delay it for an extra day so that people could get over the pain of the Malmo result. And we now in a position that we have ensured that all Bears and Bearettes across the globe who want to join us in Vegas in 2022 can indeed do so. At the time of recording, which right now is 7:19 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, we've sold just under 360 sets of those tickets, which is great news for a few reasons. Firstly, all the tickets didn't just disappear immediately, leaving potential attendees disappointed again. Secondly, because it didn't sell out, we can keep the sale open for the next wee while, and everyone who wants to come along will still have the opportunity to go and purchase the tickets and do so. And thirdly, we won't be getting lambasted on social media again for having a popular event that sells out. And when I say we, it's most definitely on this occasion the royal we, and by that I mean our social media guy Andy Carey won't be getting lambasted and taking the brunt of most of the frustrations out there before it even gets to me. So good news all round on that. On the hotel front, we got the draft addendum for increased rooms just today, and admittedly I haven't actually looked at it yet. I will endeavour to do that this evening, and all being well with the addendum, we'll get that signed in the next 24 hours or so and get those rooms back out and available for booking. So please stay tuned for that one, and we will of course communicate that through our regular communications channels when that's all sewn up and ready to go. That should be a little bit later this week, I'm hoping. And with the tickets now settling down and the hotel just about there, we can dedicate a little bit more time to the events surrounding the convention, like the golf and football Friday excursion and the Sunday leaving do. And on that, we will be meeting with the Las Vegas Loyal Local Organising Committee this coming Thursday, and I hope we'll be in a position to launch the Facebook event page and get going on the various events to get them out there essentially for booking for everyone very soon. We're not in reality, we're not technically behind from a schedule perspective on that, but to me it feels a wee bit like we are, because we put the hotel and the event tickets on sale a lot earlier this year than we would do. We would never compete one event with another event, one convention with another convention. So as we didn't have a convention this year, there was no competition. That's why we put the stuff out a little bit earlier. So that said, earlier is most definitely better so that everyone can get their stuff booked and know what their holiday looks like, and then move on from there. So more to follow on that next week after we have the chance to chat with Drew White and Jimmy Denning on this Thursday's meeting. So looking forward to chatting with the guys again on that. Regarding the travel partner, we will be looking to solidify and formalise that partnership hopefully by the end of the month, roughly at the latest. If you haven't yet booked your travel, stay tuned for some announcements on that on the next wee while, so that we can hopefully help make sure that all of your travel needs can be met with an affordable and quality service from our partner. I don't know that we'll have it tied up by next week. In fact, I'm fairly confident we won't. So it should be, as I say, the end of the month for a target for having that one sewn up. So stay tuned on that, and our regularly scheduled weekly plug for the frequently asked questions document. It's on our website. Go take a peek at that if you have any questions. If they're not answered there, you can get in touch with me directly at rangersscc@hotmail.com, and we will endeavour to get you your answers as quickly as we can, and that's 2 S's and 2 C's. From an other business segment this week, the one main thing we accomplished last week was the paying of the RTV game fees to RTV for season 2020-2021. And so thanks again, a million, to Sandra Hawthorne and Fraser Curry for their help in getting that one over the line. And I do believe this was Sandra's last official act as acting treasurer, and now we turn our focus to Alec Grant to ensure that he has the support that he needs to move the treasurer portfolio forward. I know that he is very much looking forward to doing that and is already getting his teeth sunk right in there. I'm also hoping to grab some time with our marketing and sponsorship director Lorraine Spence this week to just move forward our marketing and sponsorship discussions. I was hoping to do that a little bit last week, but my pesky holiday got in the way. Sorry, not sorry. So we will hopefully get a chance to have a chat on that. And just a wee reminder of what I mentioned last week, there is an opportunity for your organisation or business to sponsor this very podcast as well. I'm fairly confident it'll be way more affordable than you think. So please don't hesitate to have a wee think about it. And if you or anyone you know would be interested, please don't hesitate to get in touch either with myself directly at rangersscc@hotmail.com or with Lorraine Spence as well. And we can get that one going. From an interviews overview for this week, I'm trying my very best not to say perspective. I know I have said this for a wee while, but I am still hopeful that we will have Rangers Football Club's very own communications director, David Graham, on for a quick chat just about how things are going. Things are just going a mile a minute at the club. I know they are. And that doesn't diminish the desire to have David on and his desire to be on as well. So it's just a matter of getting that one tied down. So I'll keep mentioning that until I've guilted myself enough into actually making it happen, and then we'll get it going there. So just a quick reminder, if there's anything specific from a club communications perspective that you would like to hear David answer, please by all means get in touch with me, and I'll certainly add it to the list of questions, assuming that it's clean enough to do so. On to the communications segment from this past week. Firstly, you might have seen an article on the Rangers website from just this past weekend on Saturday, a note about Rangers legend Davie Wilson from the Wilson family, which read, "The Wilson family would like to announce that due to ongoing Alzheimer's and dementia issues, Rangers legend Davie Wilson has now retired from attending Ibrox on match days to watch his beloved Rangers. He was thrilled to see the Gers win their 55th league title and wishes his team all the very best in the forthcoming season. On behalf of the Wilson family." Such a shame, and I'm sure a very, very tough decision for Davie and his family to take, but one that I'm hoping is best for Davie himself. Ideally, yes, for sure it is anyway. It did remind me that I had some preliminary conversations with Davie Wilson Jr. And as I say that out loud, I don't know actually if he gets called that, but from now on, I'm going to call him Junior, I think, because I'm fairly sure he'll love that. The conversations were about having him on the podcast as an interviewee to talk about what it was like growing up with a bona fide Rangers legend, Hall of Famer, as his dad. And we kind of let that one drift a wee bit. That was my fault, actually. So I do want to pick that one back up fairly quickly and do something fitting in honour of his dad's contributions to our great football club. So stay tuned for more on that over the next wee while. And Junior, if you are listening, I will be in touch shortly, my friend. Secondly, from a communication for this last week, for regular listeners, you'll know that I am a big fan of the Keys and Gray podcast hosted by Richard Keys and good friend of NARSA, Andy Gray. And the lads did take a hiatus from the pod once the Euros were done and went home and convalesced with family and had a bit of a relaxing holiday and stuff like that. And then returned for the first week of the English Premiership season this past weekend with their first pod. And the reason I'm mentioning it this week is that they're special, and I'm going to say that in inverted commas again for this week. Their special guest this week was Charles Green, who they had invited on to talk about his time single-handedly saving Rangers Football Club and putting all the wrongs of Scottish football to rights, culminating in his wrongful arrest and subsequent exoneration, or whatever the legal term for him getting away with it was. So, again, I'm back. I am a big fan of the podcast and of the guys. And yesterday, when Brian Campbell had messaged to say who was the guest this week, I don't mind admitting I had a WTF moment and thought, really, that's the very first show of season 2 of their podcast, and that's who they decided to plump for as their first guest. Okay. Then I listened to it, and I have to admit that I underestimated Charles Green and his ability to completely waffle his way through any conversation with such a persuasive storytelling aplomb that he genuinely actually believes what he's saying, and no one will tell him any different. It's almost an hour of my time that I'll never get back, and I can't say I truly enjoyed listening to that fella again, far from it, but like it or not, he is part of our club's history and will remain so. But I genuinely thank the big man upstairs that he's now a million miles away from our club and can't do any more harm than he already did. That's, I guess, the beauty of interviews. You don't always have to like or agree with everyone that you interview, or what they have to, or like what they have to say. But if it's topical and of interest, and then there's somewhat of an obligation to at least consider giving them the time of day, and I guess that's what Richard and Andy decided to do for this week. Luckily, from a NARSA podcast perspective, I get to decide directly who I interview, and I'll only ever interview people I like or admire, and that will never change. If you're interested in checking out this week's podcast from Keys and Grey, go check it out. But if you were thinking of trying them out for the first time this week, I would thoroughly recommend, as a starter, going into any episode from last season's 40 plus catalogue and pick any one of those, because each and every one of them are brilliant. This week, just that the guest was not for me. Our friends at 5 Stars launched a new website this past week that helps visitors to the site navigate their ever-increasing suite of products and events that they have to offer. I'll leave the link to the new site on the blurb for today's pod, and would encourage you to go and take a peek at what they have right now, because some of the stuff is literal gold dust. There is gold dust in some of their alcoholic beverages. In terms of other Rangers Football Club memorabilia, there's lots and lots of stuff on there. So as I say, I'll put the link in the blurb and go take a peek and see if there's anything there of interest. Really like the site. Very, very simple, easy to navigate, not a lot of pomp or anything like that. So well done to the guys on that new launch of that. Almost finally, on the communications for this week, for those who follow the happenings of Club 1872, you know that they haven't quite had their troubles to seek this past wee while. From a more public perspective, just recently they sacked or fired or ousted out the Rangers chaplain, Reverend Stuart Macquarie, from his volunteer consulting role with them. Yeah, you heard it right. They sacked the Rangers chaplain. And for me, it's not so much the removal of Stuart from his role, it's the way that it was done and the lack of management of the fallout from that as well, which has essentially just been non-existent. More recently, Robert Marshall from the Loudon had fronted an effort from a series of individuals to call for an extraordinary general meeting to have the existing board members of Club 1872 permanently removed from their roles and replaced by temporary 6-month appointed board members who would be tasked with essentially finding out just where things stand in terms of the overall business model and progress to the strategies that they have in place, and what steps need to be taken to get themselves back on a firm footing to fulfil their very important role on behalf of participating Rangers fans. All very dramatic and not something that NARSA has any direct formal involvement in. We did have some dialogue with existing Club 1872 members a while back when they had embarked on their legacy campaign to raise something in the region of, I think it was £13 million to purchase Dave King's existing shareholding in the club. And the conversation was basically to see if we could have them on for an interview to help them, educate the NARSA listeners as to what the legacy campaign is, why it's important, how they can get involved and the like, that sort of thing. Then it just went quiet. And that might, once again, be more on me than on them. But to be fair, primarily to be fair to me, I'm not the one trying to sell it, they are. So we just provide the international broadcasting platform. Anyway, today our good pal Cammy Bell from Heart and Hand interviewed two of the parties who are involved from the requisitioners group, and it was Christian Elgay or LG, I've probably made a mess of that one as well, and James Laird from the requisitioners group, as I say, to discuss their concerns regarding Club 1872, the aims of the group, and what changes that they feel specifically are necessary to get to the steps that they are proposing. So it's a really interesting listen, and something that you might want to check out just from an information perspective if you're not a member of Club 1872. So I will put the link in today's blurb, and you can access it by clicking the link on that. Even if you aren't a Heart and Hand subscriber just yet, you'll be able to access the information. It will open up a new website and you'll get access to the interview. Very, very interesting listen. And finally, from a communications overview for this week, I know I've said it for the last 2 or 3 weeks, we still have to get the competition going for the manager's dinner tickets that 5 stars very kindly donated to us. We will get going on that. I'm not even going to say this week because it may not even be this week, so we'll just figure it out as we can. But they are still in the hopper, they're not going away anywhere, and hopefully we'll get on that at some point when it's appropriate to do so. I wanted to end this week's podcast with a wee bit of a reflection on my life and my philosophy as a Rangers fan. Not on my life, that's boring, but in my philosophy as a Rangers fan, which really came back to the fore for me after last Tuesday's Malmo mess. And I was just thinking, once again, this familiar feeling like, what the hell are you doing, Gary? Like, why do you even bother with this sort of thing? Now, to caveat this, I made a pact with myself this past close season that I was going to take a real emotional step back from the investment that I have in game, and try to do my very best not to get so stressed out with Rangers performances, both in game and afterwards as well. Championship 55 was such an emotional journey for everyone that I think fans across the globe were so emotionally exhausted when we finally got it over the line that, you know, my decision was really more along the lines of, my mood makes absolutely zero difference to Rangers performances or results, none. And it only puts me in a wacky emotional place, and sometimes, you know, quite often negatively affects my family and friends. So I'm choosing not to do that anymore, and I'm choosing to just enjoy the fact that Rangers chose me and immerse myself in the glory of being a Rangers Football Club fan again. And man, oh man, have I been tested on that thus far in the season with the Malmo and Dundee United games. But I've kept my cool during the games much more than I did in previous times in games, and rationalised the performances and results as much as possible, as quickly as possible, to get back to normal emotionally quicker than I would. Anyway, to my point, we're a family. Rangers are a family. We always have been a family, and we always will be a family. And like every family, we don't always get along, and we do each other's nuts in at times. But when the chips are down and when we need some help or support, we're always there for each other. And if the last 10 years has proven anything to us, it proves exactly that. We will always be there for each other in spades. Back in 2013 at the NARSA convention in San Francisco, I was very fortunate to be seated next to Ali McCoist for the dinner at the grand banquet on a Saturday night. And I was saying a version of that to Ali, saying, you know what, we're a family, and you know, we don't always agree, and we don't always agree to disagree even. However, you know, we're always going to be there for each other, just the stuff that I explained. Then Ali goes up to do a speech, invited up by the MC, goes up, does a speech, and almost verbatim says what I said to him. And I'm like, and he did it twice. He did it with another thing as well, in terms of Rangers being winners. And then he sat down and I said, hey, that was my line. That's the stuff that I was just saying there. And he said, I'm Ali McCoist. So we had a great laugh about that. Very true, he is Ali McCoist, and it's now in folklore that these are his lines, but I am taking all of the credit for that. But back to the point, it's absolutely true. You don't do walking away, to coin Ali's phrase, from your family. You might have times when you're not in speaking terms, or that you're really upset with each other, but you know deep down in your heart you're always going to be there for them. Being a sports fan is just inherently about winning and losing, succeeding and failing, and that's why the highs are so high and so enjoyable and the lows can be so low. No one team wins all the time. That's proven over every single sports team across the globe. And despite the lacklustre start to this this particular season, if I'm allowed to use that word for right now, we still love our club and we'll still continue to support them as best we can through this journey to 56, which I believe is firmly within our grasp and firmly going to happen this season. So I'm going to take a breath and thank my lucky stars that I'm privileged to support the greatest football team in the world. Not everyone was chosen like we have been, and I'm glad of a reminder of that every now and again, I should say. I have good pals here in Calgary who are Southampton fans, who are Liverpool fans, and we have really good banter each week, especially when results don't go the way that we want them for each of the other teams. But I can confidently stick my neck out here and state that their club doesn't mean as much to them as Rangers does to me. Rangers does to every single person listening to this. It's a way of life. It's more than a hobby and something that I'll be involved in my whole life. I know that for a fact, and something that I am forever grateful for, and I hope that you are too. That's going to do it for this week, my friends. As always, thank you very, very much for taking the time to listen, and please do share it with anybody else that you think would be interested in listening each week. Until next week, take care. All the very best. Cheerio.